What can I say about Brodie Lee? He was one of my favorites during his time in AEW. Highly entertaining in AEW. Doing a parody of Vince McMahon, though he said he was based it on on mafia people. He he won the TNT championship. Now I'm going to tell you all about him, even though I can't think of what to say. And being one of my favorites in AEW, he was one of the first people I unlocked in AEW Fight Forever. He was born Jonathan Huber, played lacrosse and hockey growing up, was a big fan of the Washington Commanders, who used to be known as the Washington Redskins, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. He originally got into wrestling doing backyard wrestling under a mask as Huber Boy 2. And then later was trained and wrestled in New York, NWA New York, and Evolve and Chikara, and New Jersey Wrestling, New Jersey All Pro Wrestling, New Jersey All Pro Wrestling. And even wrestled in Ring of Honor for a time, Dragon Gate and Dragon Gate USA, holding titles in many of those wrestling companies. Formed the Roughnecks on the independent circuit, and wrestled as Brodie Lee on the independent circuit. He came up with the name Brodie Lee off the character in Mallrats that Jason Lee played, combined the character Brodie that Jason Lee played with Jason Lee's last name, though many people think he took the Brodie name off of Bruiser Brody, because his wrestling style was a lot like Bruiser Brody. Then he made it to WWE, where they changed his name to Luke Harper and had him debut as part of the Wyatt family in NXT, where Bray Wyatt referred to him as his first son. And him and Eric Rowan would go on to hold the NXT Tag Team Championships before the Wyatt family would debut on the main roster. On the main roster, he would hold the Intercontinental Championship once he was set free from the Wyatt family, taking it off Dolph Ziggler as when he joined with the Authority, which was a generalized ripoff of the Corporation, only it was never as dominant as the Corporation and never as entertaining as the Corporation, mainly because it didn't have someone as entertaining as Vince McMahon. But would lose the Intercontinental Championship back to Dolph Ziggler. I think his reign lasted something like 26 days. They never really saw him as a singles competitor in WWE, though he would hold the tag titles twice. Once under the Freebird rule with Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, before Bray Wyatt would kick him out of the Wyatt family again for fighting with Randy Orton after he lost tag titles that time. And once as part of the Bludgeon Brothers with Eric Rowan, who he was in the Wyatt family with, and they shortened his name then to Harper, and they shortened Eric Rowan's name to Rowan, and they were the Bludgeon Brothers, which were a tag team that entrants were kind of like Demolition, only they carried huge mallets to the ring with them. And they were the Bludgeon Brothers, and they held the tag titles for 126 days, 128 days, something like that, before losing them again. But like I said, they never saw him as a singles competitor in WWE, though he pitched ideas as for a singles run in WWE. Vince McMahon always turned them down, though. He appeared sporadically after the Bludgeon Brothers, but requested his release. Vince McMahon added 6 months on to his contract due to time taken off due to injury, but eventually got his release and went to All Elite Wrestling, where he would hold the TNT Championship, where he would challenge for the World Championship against Moxley after being undefeated for several weeks, but would lose, and would hold the TNT Championship and would have some of Cody Rhodes' best matches. Would fight Cody Rhodes in some of Cody Rhodes' best matches, including a dog collar match, before eventually he passed away, sadly, at 41, due to pulmonary cystic fibrosis, which is a disease where your lung linings thicken until you eventually die because you can't breathe anymore. It was a tragedy when he passed. Every wrestling company, except maybe, I'm not sure which one, I think just about all major wrestling companies, did some kind of memorial on their show for him. The WWE shown a graphic for him in front of all three of their shows that week. AEW Dynamite held a special show. He was in charge. He was the exalted one of the Dark Order in AEW. Their leader. He jumped on people when they yawned and beat people with papers on being the elite on YouTube. And on their AEW special Dynamite show, the Dark Order was in every match. And on the special Dynamite show. And then his son, Brodie Lee Jr., came out and was awarded the TNT Championship for life, retiring the Red Strap TNT Championship. And since then, we've had a Black Strap TNT Championship. Many wrestlers reached out and paid tribute to him when he died, talking about how he was very devoted to his family and his wife and kids. He was a good man, good husband, good father. One of the most entertaining wrestlers as Brodie Lee in AEW I've ever seen. He really portrayed Vince McMahon well as a parody. Though he claimed it wasn't a parody of McMahon, it obviously was a parody of McMahon. I don't think he claimed it was a parody of McMahon because I think someday he thought, maybe I'll go back to WWE, and I don't want to burn that bridge. But if you watched it, it was obviously a parody of Vince McMahon. The Dark Order in their meeting room have ever since had a painting of Brodie Lee in that meeting room. They've worn armbands that said Brodie on them. On AEW's Dynamite most recently Homecoming show, they had 2 special 6-man tag matches to honor Brodie Lee and have aired a video package honoring him. As I said, he was a good wrestler. He held many titles. His style was, he was a power man, but he had very good agility. Died at the age of 41. Way too young. I mean, I'm almost in a year and a half, I'll be 41. I cannot imagine dying at that age. Then again, my brother died at 34, so yeah. Next week, we will be taking a look at the scandals of Vince McMahon, and there have been many, so that video might be quite long. See you next week.